Hello trainers, Ganeto here, and today we're diving together into Retro Cup with my best teams video. We're gonna have one extra week of Retro Cup alongside Ultra League, and that's gonna be kinda good for those who doesn't have the extra resources to reach to the Ultra League format, and overall this Retro Cup will feel much healthier when you compare it on the Open Great League format. So overall we're gonna showcase today 4 of those teams. In my opinion, one of the best ones is gonna be the first one, and at the same time we're gonna check out not only the core breakers for each individual team, but also how you can manipulate those teams towards your advantage and obviously have the upper hand over your opponents. So starting off with the first team out of the total 4, and we're gonna have a Dragonair up in front, while at the back Double Cost will take over as our solid backline. At the same time, Dragonair is gonna be one of the best leaders that you can use for the meta, and that's mainly because of its dragon typing being pure. At this point I want to mention that both fairy types and steel types are out of existence, so that gives more play to dragons and obviously a Pokemon like Dragonair. As a core breaker you might see another dragon, this time Arctibax, and that's mainly because of its ice typing, able to resist much more the serves and of course the ice moves that Froslass has to offer. With that in mind, I believe that the core breaker of Arctibax is still gonna be there, but kinda soft because your backline being Double Ghost can still handle that threat. I really like how easy it is for Froslass to come into the battle as a pivot, draw out that counter that your opponent might have for any ghost type out there, and if you didn't know already, well, dark types are also out of existence for Retro Cup, so this is another plus for you to use a Double Ghost backline in combination with a dragon type up in front. For your closing part, I believe that Jellicent is gonna be a very good option overall with Shadow Ball and Surf. Don't use Bubble Beam, you are not gonna need it at all, or even Ice Beam, while for the ice coverage, Froslass is just gonna take over. If you want to use the triple axle version of Froslass, feel free to do so, but I still think that Avalanche and Shadow Ball are still gonna perform much better as your charge attacks. Next up, we're meeting with a team that is gonna be kinda good on the offensive part, but with its charge attacks. On the fast attack version, not so much, so you need to take those shields out of play as soon as possible, and this team can absolutely guarantee that. You have 3 moves that are gonna be able to bait your opponent's shields, while at the same time each individual Pokemon will have one extra move of its own to nuke down unsuspected opponents, and those moves are of course Shadow Ball from your Golbat, Frenzy Plant from your Serperior, and why not Meteor Beam from your Aurorus. So this team is looking pretty scary offensively, but defensively not so much. You will need those shields up because all these Pokemon are gonna be kinda glassy, and of course if you have a Shadow Golbat, even glassier as your closer, but of course the offense will definitely make up for it. I really like Serperior on this cap as a safe switch, even though it is gonna be a grass type, excuse me, it is still gonna struggle a little bit against dragons, but not so much due to it having the move Aerial Ace on its moveset. So with that in mind, you can still go pretty neutral against your counters. You have a lot of coverage with those Poison Fangs and Shadow Balls on your end game with Golbat, and overall I would not recommend going for the baits when you have a Pokemon like Aurorus, because still those Meteor Beams can hurt the opponent a lot. As a core breaker here, Vigoroth is gonna be there, but not that much of a big core breaker other than your Aurorus. The other 2 Pokemon can still handle this Pokemon pretty easily, and they are still gonna have a loss, but it's gonna be just a soft one, which means that the next Pokemon that will come into the battle will definitely take advantage of that extra farm. Heading now into the next team showcase, and we're gonna have an amazing bulky team. We're talking about a Mountain up in front, a Regirock as a closer, and as our pivot, yeah, you guessed that right, that is gonna be the amazing Lickitung. So if you do not have a Lickitung, I recommend going for another normal type slash Licker, and that Pokemon can always be something like a Munchlax, something like a Snorlax. Feel free to choose, or just go simply with a Licky and you're not gonna regret it. This team is pretty good, and even if you choose to use something like a glacier normal type Licker like a Shadow Snorlax for example, you can still still rely on the other two Pokemon to tank those hits, because we're talking about a lot of bulk in the meta and you are definitely gonna need it. What you also need to take note of is to aggressively switch into those battles with your Lickitung or the other normal type that you want to use, even something like a Vigoroth, to draw out the opposing side's fighter and then finish it off with your Mantine. So the only core breaker that I found out about this team is going to be a water gun version of Lantern, and that's mainly because water gun can still hurt down your Regirock if you are not careful, and about your Regirock, if you do not have Focus Blast and instead you have something like an Earthquake, feel free to use it because it is a legacy move and most of the times it is still gonna help you against those electric types, so why not use a move that can still nuke down your core breaker of this line. At the same time, keep in mind that you are not gonna need Focus Blast if you have Earthquake, but instead Stone Edge as your second charge attack. That is gonna be all about this team, and now let's move forward into the final one. Much like Mantine, Pelipper here as well will share those same typings and having pretty much the same matchups. However, you have access to a move like Hurricane, which can do even more damage, so you're exchanging a little bit of bulk for extra damage, and this team is gonna work pretty well around the lead of Pelipper because you have a backline that can definitely handle the weaknesses that Pelipper is having, and one of those notable weaknesses is of course Lantern, so at the back both Vigoroth and Charjabug can handle that threat like a boss. What I like about this team is that it can provide a lot of pressure with those spammy moves, and of course you have some pressuring fast attacks as well, so this is an all-around team that I really recommend to you. Another core breaker besides Dragonite that I have here, and it is kinda soft to be fair, is gonna be the Unova Stunfisk, but I haven't added it at all on this graph that I have on your left, only because you are not gonna see a lot of those Unova Stunfisks at all in the meta, but if you happen to see one, yeah, this is gonna be kind of a troublemaker, but still your Weather Balls are gonna add up in damage and they need to shield the second one if they are not careful at all, and you of course can win those CMPs to that Thundershock race. So with that in mind, now at the back we're gonna be pairing up our Pelipper with Vigoroth, which is gonna be an absolutely insane monster for this season, with Rock Slide being added on its moveset. Body Slam is gonna be there, but Rock Slide is just gonna help you even more against some flyers, against a Mantine that we saw before. As a closer here, Charjabug is just gonna be a very good closer overall because of the fact and the ability that it has to reach to those X Scissors pretty fast, and also has the move Crunch for coverage for those ghost types, or just go with Discharge, for that extra coverage against the flyers that you might actually need a lot. So as you can see here, we can still finish off our opponent pretty steadily here with our moves coming back to back all the time, and yeah, that is gonna be all for today's content. Thank you for watching, trainers, and for staying till the end. Just be sure to leave a huge like before you go, subscribe to the channel as always, and of course I have 2 videos for you to check out, feel free to check them out, and I will catch you up later into the next one.